Thank you, Victor. Sorry I'm late tonight, but we got here in the end. We made it. This is the last session, the very last session, 8 weeks. What a journey it's been. We've learned creation account. We've learned about the covenants. We've learned about the prophets. We've learned about the bloodline of Jesus. We've learned about the Bible periods. We've learned the 14 books that you need to read in order. We've learned about the 59 supplemental books you've got to read. Hopefully we've learned a bit about the Old Testament, all of it pointing to Christ. And here we are, we're at the time of Christ. It's now interesting, the man in history that all people can agree on that divided history from before Christ and the day of Christ, the day of the Lord. And interesting, the day of the Lord, when do we count that? So it's 2022 today, this year. Are we counting to what point? His birth or his death? His birth. So in 2033, we're going to celebrate 2,000 years since his death. This is fascinating. This man, this God man that we've been waiting for, divided history. You see, before him and after him. These days, there is a bit of an issue about that, you know, what is it, a common error, to not be offensive, but ultimately, for centuries we've understood this, BC and AD. And here we are, 2022 AD. Praise be to God. So lots have happened. Interesting. I hope that by the end of this study, you've had an appreciation of the Bible, of God's word in your life. Has it at least impacted your experience at church? When you hear the scriptures, can you remember the characters and then put yourself in those scenes and then take the lesson out for you today? You see, these scriptures weren't written just for those people 2,000 years ago. They were written for us and for the end of time. They were written for everyone. And all those gone before us and all those will come after us, the scriptures will remain relevant at today and the future as it was for all those people back there. And this is the beauty of our God. It's infinite. Remember, no beginning, no end. He just is. I am. That's it. I am. And that's beauty. That's the beautiful thing. That's God's name. So just look at this chart. We have done everything here. The early world, Adam and Eve, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the patriarchs. We've done Egypt and Exodus, that's Moses and Joshua. We've done Numbers, which is the desert wanderings, and Joshua taking them into the promised land in the conquest and judges, that's the green. Remember, then we had the royal kingdom, that's King David, King Solomon, and then the divided kingdom, Israel's darkest period, that was the separation, north and south. Rehoboam and Jeroboam divided. Then there was the exile, and remember the exile we had the Assyrians and then the Babylonians, the Babylonian Empire. After that, after 70 years in exile, they came back. Now, in that time, the temple was destroyed. They came back and it was rebuilt again. After that, then the Greeks took over from the Persians, and then now we're into the Roman Empire. And we learned that at the same time Jesus was born, the Son of God, was the same time that Julius Caesar was around, who was known as the son of his father, who thought he was God, therefore son of God. Herod, we know evidence that Herod knew the time and place of Jesus. That's why he killed the innocents. Remember, he killed the 2-year-olds and under. How did he know that there was a king? Because the prophets and the prophecies foreshadowed this king. And this king, he pinpointed it to Bethlehem, and he pinpointed it around that sort of time, within 2-year period. So how do we know that? Because of all the Old Testament. The genealogies we've learned, Matthew last week, that the Gospel of Matthew starts off, arguably one of the most boring chapters in the Bible. Not if you've done this course now. It's one of the most exciting because those names pop out. What I didn't emphasize was the very first verse of the Gospels, Matthew. There's so much packed in the very first verse that it will just excite you. The moment, just in the language of Greek, the Greek language, when you read them, the genealogy, just straight away, genealogy, that the Greek word is Genesis. It's a new creation. The word Jesus Christ, remember Yeshua, the anointed one, who you say, and the Mashiach, Christ, the anointed one, the Savior, the Messiah. So right away, it's like, whoa, they haven't even heard anything else yet. And they're just like, new creation, Messiah, here we go, get ready. Son of David, son of Abraham, boom, our ears are ready to hear. And then it's proven by his genealogy. He's born in Bethlehem, house of bread, house of meat. We've understood all that. He's become food for us. That's right, that's right. And lahom, meat is bread in Hebrew. Then as you go, we've learned the beautiful obedience of Christ. And we've journeyed through the mysteries of the Rosary. We are now up to the sorrowful mysteries. Let me pick up from the Last Supper. So we now know this man, Jesus, prophesied 456 times. We've waited centuries for this moment. He's here, he's among us. He's now in the public ministry. He's done it for 3 years, and now it's coming to the end. And he's now ready to complete his mission. And he's at the Last Supper. What's the Last Supper meal? It is a Passover meal. Remember Passover, when did it start? One of the plagues of Exodus. You had to sacrifice a lamb. You had to sprinkle the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. You had to eat the lamb. A lot of people forget that the lamb was actually cooked over the fire in a crucifix form. The lamb was actually like this, one from their head down and one right across. They moved the legs that way. The lamb had to be spotless. The lamb had to be one of the best you could find. All foreshadowing the ultimate lamb, Jesus Christ. Now, interesting, when you go through the Last Supper meal in this moment, he's not saying that there's no mention of a lamb, but there is a mention of the bread. And at the breaking of the bread, he says, "This is my body given up for you." Connecting back to John 6, saying, when he said, remember the Israelites in the desert, God gave them the manna, and he's now saying, I am that manna. Anyone who eats this bread will live forever. The apostles are now getting their eyes opened. They're now sitting with Jesus. They've seen all the miracles. He's walked on water. He's healed all these people. And now the moment of the Last Supper, which will be the last Passover. And here we go. He says, this is my body. Then this is my blood. You've got to stop and think, this is crazy. What on earth does he mean? But they would have been reminded, he did say this during his life. He did talk about this thing about him being the manna in heaven. He did talk about all this. They still probably didn't truly understand. He even prophesies that there'll be a betrayer, and anyone who dips in my soup, with me, and Judas gets up and goes. Then Peter, he even prophesies that Peter will betray him, and Peter says, "I will not betray you, Lord." And then he says, before the cock crows 3 times, before the cock crows, you would have betrayed me 3 times. And he says, no way. Now, how many times have we been in that position as Peter? And we've said, I will never betray you, Lord. And how many times have we possibly been embarrassed to share that to others? Let's go into the next scene. It's now into the Garden of Gethsemane, the first sorrowful mystery. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane, and very, very interesting is the timing now. The Last Supper would have happened between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., 3 hours. They talk about the next stage in the night, and we know the actual hour. Remember, Jesus said, stay with me and watch for 1 hour, pray. And he goes a little bit further, and then he starts to pray. And how long do we know he's praying for? 1 hour. He comes back after an hour, and he sees the apostles sleeping. Now, what was his prayer? He says, Father, take this cup away from me. Ooh, what? Hang on. Whoa, stop. You just said, this was my blood earlier. You know your mission. You've hinted at this whole idea of the temple being destroyed and being rebuilt after 3 days. And you've said all this stuff about you dying. And here we are. And it sounds like Jesus is about to give up. Father, take this cup away from me. And he starts to sweat blood. If you sweat blood, that means you're going through a really stressful time. It's so stressful that his capillaries were bursting. The blood, the amount of stress that Jesus had, because what he was thinking of wasn't just the pain of carrying a cross or nails. He was thinking of the pain of all of our sins, the pain of carrying every single one of our sins from the very beginning, Adam and Eve, until the end of time. And he's about to take all that on him. the most innocent of innocents, is about to become sin for us. And here he is, tempted by Satan, of course. I can't do this. Satan's trying to come in. But then what does Jesus say? That he has a human moment, right? But then what does he say? And this is the lesson for us. Not my will, but thy will be done. And I love this scene in The Passion of Christ. If you've watched that movie, there's a little snake and you see him struggling, and then Jesus gets back up and he's looking at Satan eye to eye, and then he steps on the serpent. Where does that take you back to? Adam and Eve, Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed, and you will bruise his heel, and he will crush your head. Or you'll crush his head, he will bruise your heel. But here he goes, crushing Satan. And then there's this little mini triumph there. Christ has overcome that first temptation. And then he gets up and he moves on. Now he prays the second hour and the third hour. So what time will it be now? Midnight. Yes. Guess who comes to betray him? We know, Judas. At the stroke of midnight. Go back to the first Passover for a minute. The first Passover, the angel of darkness passed over at what time? Midnight. And here comes the betrayer at midnight. He kisses Jesus, and we know the story. Peter goes to defend him, and then he cuts off the ear of one of the soldiers. Another miracle, by the way. Jesus heals his ear. And in the Gospel of John, it talks about how just by them asking, are you Jesus? And he says, I am he. Oh, I am. And then the power came out of him and they fell to the ground. If you're a Roman soldier, you're thinking, who the heck is this guy? Wow, he just blowed me off my feet. But anyway, they're like, okay, they grab him and then they end up arresting him. But Jesus is in control this whole time. He wasn't like, no, I'm not Jesus. No, you got the wrong guy. No, he stood his ground and he asked the questions. He was in control. And Jesus laid down his life, remember. He was not murdered against his will. He laid down his life, and he proves it by the way he goes to the next stations here. So second sorrowful mystery, what happens? First of all, that whole night he's seeing the different he sees Herod, he sees the different leaders, right? He's getting tried, and they're making up stories. And here's the interesting thing. When they take him in front of the Jewish leaders, he's guilty of what? Being God. Being too divine. They take him in front of a Roman soldier, a Roman judge, and they see him not as divine. He's too human. Isn't that interesting, the paradox? Jesus, before the two different judges, he's too human for one and he's too godly for the other. His crime is to be not a king in front of the others, and his other crime is to be not a god in front of the others. He's not human. This is interesting, that the paradox between the Roman view and the Jewish view. And here he comes, going to be condemned to death. Now, Pontius Pilate can't see any fault with him. He washes his hands. How many of us have done that? Wash our hands off. It's not me doing this, it's someone else. It's the government's fault. It's not me doing this. It's go blame the church. It's not me doing this. It's my mum and dad's fault. We've got to stop blaming other people for our own problems, our own faults. If you're responsible, take responsibility. And then when you take that responsibility, you take the consequences with that responsibility. When you take the consequences, you're now a mature Christian, because now you take it, the good and the bad. You see, we've got to be ready to take on anything in our life, good or bad. It's not our will that we live by. We said tonight, it's God's will. Thy will be done. If God's will is for you not to get a job promotion, thy will be done. If God's will for you is to not marry this person, thy will be done. If God's will for you is to, not even have children, some of us are not able to, thy will be done. If God's will for you is to, give up all of your belongings, sell them, and then go follow him, thy will be done. You see the point. Whatever happens in life, God's will be done. And when we start living with God's will, we will be happy no matter what comes. I promise you this. The amount of times I've been told by the world, I'm a failure, I'm not meant to be doing what I'm doing, you know, all these things, all this negativity, it drags you down. And if you listen to those voices and not Christ's voice, you can be tempted to believe them. And then you start looking at yourself and say, I'm not worthy. We're not worthy. Of course we're not worthy. But thanks to Christ, through my weakness, I am strong. I rely on his strength. And we repeat his words in the garden. Not my will, but thy will be done. And then we stamp on Satan and move forward. So get back up and move forward. So here we go. He's condemned. He's not condemned to death yet. He's asked to be scourged. Now he's scourged. Now, if you remember the passion scene, that's pretty gruesome. It wasn't just the back. It wasn't like 40 lashes, which they used to do. It was hundreds and hundreds. And it wasn't just with a stick. It was with not just a chain. We had bones of animals. We had all teeth and things on it that ripped his flesh out. Not just the back, by the way. It was the legs. It was the front. It was the arms. It was the face. And evidence of this is in the Shroud of Turin. We have the burial cloth for Jesus that actually the scientists are now proving more and more that the amount of pain Jesus went through is beyond our belief. It's phenomenal. He should have died from that, but he survived. And again, a little bit of triumph in the passion scene, very, very cleverly. Jesus is down. And remember, he's down on the pillar and he's exhausted. But then he remembers a flashback and he remembers what he's here for, what he's going to do. And there's like the music goes on and then he gets back up and the Romans are like, are you serious? And give him more. And Jesus knew his mission. Gets, like he's almost there. Now he goes back before Pilate and here's an interesting scene. Pilate's there looking at him. So I just told you to scourge him, not to kill him. Anyway, he's pouring blood. And every year, what does Pilate have? He has a tradition: release a prisoner. Who's the prisoner? His name is Barabbas. Barabbas is on one side, Jesus on the other side. Now, this is very, very interesting. We have the innocent man, Jesus Christ, the Son of the Father, and we have Barabbas. If I translate this, it's Barabbas. What did I say last week? Bar. Son of. Abba, Father. Son of who? The Father. Barabbas means son of the Father. You have here, side by side, two sons of the Father. Guess who Barabbas is? It's us. Look, you're in this scene right now. Here's the point. You should be shaken now saying, how dare they release Barabbas? He was the criminal. He's the one that deserves death. Why on earth is he free? Replace Barabbas with you. Look in the mirror and then be real. I'm guilty. I sinned. He took my place. Christ took my place. It's unjust. It's not natural. And that's the whole point. It's supernatural. Jesus is showing us a whole new way. And it's going to transform the way we live our lives. They release the guilty one. And the innocent is now going to be condemned to death. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you listen to the leaders, Jewish leaders, Pilate's still not convinced he's guilty. I mean, he's just a man. I mean, what's going on? They say he's guilty of treason, right? He claims to be a king. We have no king but Caesar. Well, hello, the Jewish leaders, religious leaders lied because they didn't really believe in the king. They didn't follow the land. And they're accusing. They needed to make sure, they couldn't condemn him to death. They needed to make sure that the Romans condemned him to death. And they did it and they succeeded. There's a lot more I can unpack here. There's like a 5-week course just on this point, but it's not much time. I've got to keep moving. But Jesus now carries the cross. First of all, he's crowned with thorns. The same word used for the thorns, the same sort of word we understand. If I backtrack to Genesis, remember Isaac went up the mountain, there was a ram in the thicket, the bushes. That same bush is the same branch, we believe. That the thorny bush that the ram was stuck in, where Isaac went up the mountain, is the same sort of thorny bush that they made a crown of, mocking Jesus. And these Romans probably, as the Passion portrays, drunk or, just spitting on him, mocking him. Hail to the king, and they robe him, not knowing they truly are bound to the true King of Kings, without them realizing. Jesus is not just carrying physical pain. There's emotional pain. There's pain that is, just think about this. If you are a parent and your children are suffering, how much pain is that for you? It's a very different pain. Physical pain, you can cop. That type of pain is very, very different. So spare a thought now for what Jesus is going through. Mentally, he would have suffered a lot of all sorts of things, not just physical pain. And his mother watching this whole time, what is she going through right now? He's carrying the cross, and we know you've heard of the 14 stations of the cross, and if you journey through, he falls the first time, gets back up, he meets his mother, he meets Simon of Cyrene. Interesting. Simon of Cyrene scene. They grab Simon. He would have been just visiting. This would have been around that Passover time, but everyone's coming to Jerusalem, and they grab Simon. Now, he doesn't know who this man is, but when you read the little details there, Simon is behind Jesus. They meet eye to eye. Jesus carries the cross. He leads the way, and Simon's behind him, following Christ. Now, without him realizing, Simon of Cyrene is seen as the first disciple, in a sense. He converts on the way. He doesn't know who Jesus is. He's carrying, and he's seeing how people are treating him. He's helping him carry his cross. Go back to Jesus's words. If you want to be my disciple, take up your cross daily and follow me. As I carried the cross, and as he is at the time, Simon of Cyrene is carrying that cross, and he's about to have that conversion. This is jam-packed, this stuff. And then he meets, we know Veronica's veil. He meets his mother, the women of Jerusalem, number 8. He falls a second time, gets back up. There's a lesson for us there. And then he's falls a third time, gets back up. Another lesson there. Don't give up. Get back up. Get back up. He had to get to Calvary. He had to get to Calvary. He couldn't just give up. He had to get there. And then we've got the stripping of the clothes. And there's so much reflection in each of these stations, but nailed to the cross. And then he's up there, and then he dies. Now, before he dies, there are 7 last sayings. What's the first thing out of Jesus' mouth as he's up there on the cross for everyone to see? Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Who is this man? Who does he think he is? Like, if there was anyone that had the right to have revenge, if there was anyone that had the right to punish, if there was anyone that had the power to punish, forgive them? Are you serious? These guys are spitting at you. These guys are making fun of you. These guys are mocking you. You want to still forgive them? How hard is that for us today? But there's the model, and there's the challenge. Jesus' first words on the cross is to forgive. What was his first words in the public ministry again, 3 years earlier? Repent. You see how it's the same side. Repent and believe in the good news. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. We must be sorry for our sins, but we also must be willingly at the very same time forgive. And if we are not sorry, we will not be forgiven. If we are not going to forgive, we will not be forgiven. Do you see that? We have to be sorry in order to get forgiveness, but we have to also be willing to forgive in order to receive forgiveness. I'm not making this up. Jesus himself said in the prayer, forgive us our sins, our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. If we are not willing to forgive, and this is the challenge, we will not be forgiven. This is so hard, yet so free. Some of the most radical stories I've heard. I mean, look, one of our own. I mean, look, the Abdullahs right now in Rome. What's their story? They've lost their children. If there were anyone that had a right to get revenge, these guys had it. This guy killed their children. But no, the story, the power is in that forgiveness. If we don't forgive, and there's so many other stories we have to be willing to go that far. And it's radical. It's against the grain. It's against the world's views. It's against justice. But it's the Christian way. And that is where the power lies. If we forgive, it's completely transformative and freeing. Now that's Jesus' first words. What else does he say? A couple of things. So remember the criminals. And he says, first of all, the good thief. First of all, the bad thief. Hey, why don't you just take yourself down? Save us, save yourself, and save us with you. And then the good thief. What are you talking about? This guy is innocent. We're guilty. We deserved it. And he says, please remember me when you come into your kingdom. And then Jesus, he says to him, the good thief, on this day and this day, I truly tell you that you will be with me in paradise. What does he say to the bad thief? Can you remember?
He didn't say anything to him, did he?
That's right. You don't want to be the bad thief. You don't want to hear the words. You want to hear the words what the good thief heard. You'll be with me in paradise. You don't want to hear the opposite, which is nothing. You see, that's what we're ultimately destined for. It's either eternal life with Christ or eternal life without him. And it's our choice. And that's an example right there. Right there. Yes.
Is that true that the thief on the right was a saint? Is that true?
The good thief?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, definition of a saint is someone who is in heaven. And if Jesus promised that he'll be in heaven, therefore he will become a saint. So yes, if you think about it. Now, he sees his disciple John and his mother, and he tells John, so woman, he didn't say Miriam, he didn't say mama, woman, there it is again. Ding, 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 ding. Where do we hear woman? Wedding feast at Cana. Where do we hear woman? Genesis 15. Where will we later hear woman? By a book written by John? Revelation. Interesting, it's by Revelation written by John, the one that was at the foot of the cross. Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. And boom, we have a mother, not just for him, but for all of us. And John's there at the foot of the cross. The youngest apostle, the youngest disciple out of the 12. Every other one of them fled, even Peter. But here he is, the youngest right there at the foot of the cross. We go on to the next one. That's 3. We've got 4. He says, first of all, remember, I thirst. Remember that? Now, there's 2 times they gave something to drink. One was on a hyssop branch. One was just on a sponge. Just to understand what's going on, he drinks vinegar, which is like what? Stale wine, off wine. So it's wine. And then when he finishes it, he says something. It is finished. But there's still a few more words to say after this. So it's not finished. So what's he talking about? If you ask anyone, is salvation finished at that point? Is it? Is that it? No. Why? We've still got the resurrection to come. So it's not actually finished, is it? There's still a bit more to go. So what is Jesus talking about? It is finished. The vinegar's finished. And so, okay, it's not finished. So he sips this wine, off wine. Now, this is where I encourage you, read a book, Fourth Cup, or listen to it. It's quite beautiful, unpacking this. And you just look at what's going on here. In the Last Supper, the understanding is that this fourth cup wasn't drunk. And then Jesus on the cross is drinking that fourth cup, basically. It is finished, because the final words of the Passover meal is, it is finished. Just look at that. I invite you to look more at that. Scott Hahn does a brilliant job. And yeah, there might be an alternative view, but that's good to look at that. Yeah. All right. Now, 5, 6, 7, what's left to say? Jesus says, Lahi, lahi, lama sabachthani. What does that mean? My God, why have you forsaken me? Interesting. Some say, oh, he's calling on Elijah. What's he about to do? When you hear it in English, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's a time of despair, right? Jesus, he feels alone. And some might be tempted to think that until you understand how Jews prayed. How did they pray? They prayed the Psalms every single day, 150 of them, over and over. And if I say to you, Hail Mary, I don't even have to say any more than that. What are you going to say? Full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Now, if I say, my God, why have thou forsaken me? To a Jewish person who knows their Psalms, boom, Psalm 22. And let me invite you, I won't read it now because we're running out of time, but if you read Psalm 22, please write that down, Psalm 22. You'll be amazed of how detailed that psalm is about this very scene. Now, Jesus doesn't just prove, he doesn't just sort of do any signs and wonders now that the leaders are saying, oh, take yourself on the cross if you're God. He does one better. He quotes a prayer that's filled with detail, written 1,000 years earlier, foreshadowing this very moment. And the details are, you can see my bones are numb. They cast lots for my clothes, which they did. They look at me, and the details in Psalm 22, it's just eye-popping when you read it. Now imagine you're a Jewish leader and you're watching this, and he quotes it, and then you start reciting it, and you're watching Jesus. Oh my goodness. Is he talking about us? Are we the ones responsible here? And that's where the lights must come on. I believe people converted that day just from that psalm. But we don't hear that because the next scene, there's a couple more things Jesus says. 2 more things. Before I say the final one, what's one more that I'm missing? Does anyone remember? 7 sayings. I've given you 5. I thirst. Yes, we've said that.
In my head, I feel my spirit.
Yeah, that's the last one. There's one more. Behold your mother. Today you'll be with me in paradise. Father, forgive them. Behold your mother. Today you'll be with me in paradise. My God, why have thou forsaken me? I thirst. It is finished. And then it is finished. So I thirst, I give him the way. I missed I thirst. I thirst. He's also thirsting for us, by the way, at that time. But now the final one, the 7th saying. Notice this. I'm going to say it. I want you to hear it, and I want you to notice something. Father. Jesus is now talking to the Father. This Barabbas, Son of the Father. Into your hands, I commit my spirit.
And how do you say this in Page's last?
What just happened? And then he breathed his last. What just happened? Please notice what just happened. What did he say, and why is that significant?
Is that not the Trinity there, like the Holy Spirit?
Yeah, I mean the relationship with the Father and the Son, yeah. But
Is that not 2 hands of the Spirit?
yeah, okay, yeah. The Spirit, I mean his soul, the life, what gives life, and his soul, I mean his spirit, Holy Spirit would have been present for sure. That's one, but that's not what I'm looking for.
It's an offering.
It's an offering.
It's like a sacrifice. That's what it is, a sacrifice. So it's him himself offering himself.
Jesus is.
He gave up his spirit.
Yes.
No one took it.
No one murdered Jesus. Jesus gave up his spirit. Do you understand the difference? You see, you got to catch this. Jesus came down as the priest, the final priest, to offer himself as a sacrifice. The sacrifice to end all Old Testament sacrifices. The sacrifice that will begin the whole New Testament worth of sacrifices. He is the priest on that cross, our altar, giving up his life for us, showing us the model. He laid down his life. He didn't get murdered. And I need you to understand this because a lot of people, unfortunately, might use the wrong example about why Jesus died for us. Just let me explain. If you hear some people say, Jesus giving up his sins for us, it's like, they take the quote, no greater love is there than a man laid down his life. That's perfect. And then the Father loved us so much that he gave up his only Son. Yes. But it's not that the Father sent the Son against his will. And here's the difference between, I guess, Protestant Catholic theology here. We say sometimes that Jesus was sort of thrown under the bus, if you like. There's an example where, a father was there and had to choose between giving up his son and saving the world. And he chooses to save the world to just let his son go. That's the wrong sort of parallel here, because Jesus wasn't sort of against his will let to die. Jesus knew what he had to do from heaven. He came down for this mission and he laid down his life. You see the difference? It is a sacrifice, the ultimate act of love. The ultimate act of love. So when you hear the word love, understand at its perfection, this is it. No greater love Jesus said himself, a man hasn't to lay down his life. You have to be willing to do that. This is not small talk here. This is big. Everything. Now, oh my goodness, what does that mean? I'm going to repeat it again after the resurrection because I've got to keep moving here because it's a big challenge for us today. Oh my goodness, what does love mean? Anyway, he dies. 3 p.m. Darkness is now upon the earth. And then there's an earthquake. Oh, we missed that detail. Oh, the earth opened up. Oh, we missed that detail. Oh, the temple, hang on, the curtain split. We have not seen the Ark of the Covenant since that day. What happened to it? It's gone. Now, a lot of theories here. I'm not going to open up a can of worms, but the point is we don't know. Who's the Ark of the Covenant now? It's our mother. What's the symbol on earth now? It's every single tabernacle. Who gets to participate in that? It's every single Catholic receiving communion. You are at the Ark of the Covenant. Do you understand? We can now hold and bear inside of us the God-man, Jesus Christ, our Creator, became our food. Not so just for nothing. So we can live, and not just to live one more day, but live for eternity. This is mind-boggling. So now let's count the days. It's Friday. It says that they had to take him down from the cross before the sunset, because then once the sun sets, triggers the next day, Sabbath, the 7th day. And then that's where we count day 1. Sunset to sunrise, day 1. Saturday morning, sunrise to sunset, day 2. Saturday night, sunset to sunrise for Sunday morning, day 3. We now have 3 days. On the 3rd day, at the strike of the light, first light, the stone is rolled back. Interesting about this stone, it's not rolled down a mountain. Apparently, it's rolled up the mountain. So just let that sink in. The miracle there, if you are a human being trying to push this boulder, you're not going to go uphill, you're going to go downhill. But somehow it was rolled uphill. And then when the angels were there, the women came, they noticed it was empty. They didn't go in. They went, and then John and Peter came running. Beautiful little details here. They run. John gets there first, but then Peter goes first because he's the one in charge. And then Peter goes in, and then he sees what freaked them out the most wasn't an empty tomb. When they saw what? No, the linen. Because you know what the folded linen, folded as well. What does that symbolize? That linen was his burial cloth, front and back. Their eyes would have been open when they saw the imprint of Jesus' suffering, the Shroud of Turin, front and back. And we have that today. This is amazing. We have this Shroud of Turin today. Scientists can't grapple how this happened. No human in the last 2,000 years have tried to replicate this. They cannot replicate it. They don't know how it got there. There's no print. It's not something you can replicate. It's basically like a photo negative, meaning that whatever happened was so much of a shock radiation that came out of the body of this person that imprinted on the cloth. You have to understand, for us to do it, it is phenomenal. Jesus left us a sign showing actually the amount of suffering it is. This is an artifact we have today. Yes.
Is that not the same as the miracle of Our Lady before Halloween? I think it was.
Yeah, in a sense, the tilma, Our Lady appears. It's not printed. Yeah, I love. Do you remember when Hillary Clinton went to Mexico and then she said, "Who painted this? Who's the author?" And the guide said, "Mrs. Clinton." God did this. You couldn't put 2 and 2 together. But that's another miracle. 500 years later, that piece of cloth should be disintegrated.
I was just mentioning because it was the same thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So there's so many signs today. Now let's keep going. Jesus resurrects, and now we enter the 40 days. 40, what does that mean again? New life, new generation. Here we go, restart again, 40. In this 40 days, Jesus is teaching his apostles. It says he's with them. Now here's the thing. There's a few little things here. St. Thomas says, and there's no way he's resurrected. Unless I put my hands in his side or in his, in his hands, I won't believe. And whoop, Jesus appears. Very next thing. Thomas, can you imagine? His eyes, come here, put your hands right here, put your fingers right here. And then what does he say? He drops to his knees, my Lord and my God. He believed because he saw. And then Jesus reminds us all, blessed are those who believe and have not seen. It's a big reminder for us to have. No, blessed. No, no, but yeah, this when the resurrection now. Jesus says that. And then interesting, then was another scene. They're out fishing, and then there's this man sort of on the beach there cooking fish. Is that my Lord? And then they get out and they run up to him, try to swim to him. And Jesus is there eating before their very eyes. You have to just put two and two together here. Jesus, in the previous scene, just appeared like a ghost. But then Thomas touched him as if he was flesh. Here we go, he's eating. So is he a ghost or is he flesh? He's eating. Ghosts don't eat. But then another scene, he rode to Emmaus. And guess what's happening? You know what the road to Emmaus is? He's walking with the disciples and he's talking. They're thinking this man, they don't know who he is. And you know what he's doing on the road to Emmaus? Jesus is telling him about everything we've just learned in this 8 weeks. He basically had the best Bible study you can ever think of. Jesus told them all about salvation history. And this is where their eyes were opened. It was the first day of the week, not the Sabbath, not the 7th, the first. What's the first day? Sunday. And he broke the bread. And their eyes were opened. They saw the breaking of the bread and their eyes were opened. You see, Jesus basically performed right there, offered a mass, broke the bread, and they realized, oh my goodness. He basically did the liturgy of the word leading up to it, and then he did the liturgy of the Eucharist. And there it is, the mass. And Jesus revealed to them who he is, and they believed. Sometimes in our life, we walk, we don't, things happen for a reason. Things are under our very nose. Christ is there all the time. And unless we have eyes to see and ears to hear, we have to take note that he's there and he never leaves us alone. So be ready. The breaking of the bread, you'll see him. 40 days passes. Now it's on the 40th day. He's now ready to go back to the Father. And then he promises something. I will leave my comforter. Now that is not the Prophet Muhammad. The comforter is not anyone else other than who? The Holy Spirit. So he rises in front of them on his own power, ascension. This is Jesus' power now, not assumption, ascension. His own power goes up, the clouds cover him. Now, as he covers, angels appear, and then they say, just as you saw him go, he will return. And I love that because that's personal to what I do. That's the parousia, that's the parousia. What Jesus just did, what the angel just announced, we're waiting now for the second coming. And the second coming of Christ, we're in the time of this time right now, we're waiting. But I would argue even further that it's actually happened already. What am I talking about? Jesus is here among us today, right now, above us in the Eucharist. The second coming is among us. We're actually waiting for the third coming. Does it make sense? Where the Eucharist will cease to be what it is now. And now we turn to the beatific vision for all eternity. And Jesus will finally separate the sheep from the goats. And then there'll be no more purgatory. And then it's heaven or hell. And you're either with him or not. And hell is nothing more than a lonely place. With you, yourself, and I. The unholy Trinity. Me, myself, and I. You want that? You get that. You don't want Christ? He's not forcing himself on you. He's inviting you to say yes. If you don't say yes, you don't have to go. Therefore, you won't be with him. That's how much, this is the reality of it. This is what it's all about. We've got to get back with Christ, the Creator. And whatever it takes, we do it. And now, just one thing about love here, and then I'm going to move on to the church, and then we're done. He talks to Peter, and he says to Peter, I want you to feed my sheep. And so do you love me? And he goes, yes, you know that I love you. Okay, feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? You know, Lord, I love you. Feed my sheep. Peter, do you love me? Come on, you know I love you. Feed my lambs. What is going on? Apparently, when you read in Greek, he's asking Peter 3 different types of love. And one is like a filial love, friendship. There's the next stage of love. Now, it's not the erotic one, it's another one. And I can't remember that, but it's another type of. The last one. So what was that? No, that's the last one is agape.
Storge, I think.
Ethos. Yeah, so there's 3 types of love he talks about.
Storge, and
Filial, storge, agape.
Agape.
Now here's the reason why I say that. Each time Jesus is asking him, he's upping the ante on the type of love. Like there's love, like I love pizza. There's that love. But no, that's not what I'm asking you. Do you agape? Do you love me to the point where you're willing to sacrifice your life for me the way I did for you? Are you ready for that, Peter? Because if you are, I need you to step up now. Because you didn't step up before. You fell. You promised me before you'll never deny me, and you did. You weren't there at the cross, Peter. Peter, you're saying that you love me, but you haven't really shown it so far. Do you actually love me? Because if you do, I need you to step up right now. Because I'm about to leave, and I need my Prime Minister ready. Do you love me? And then he's sad. Because he knows, I didn't step up. And guess what? Fast forward. How does Peter die? He lays down his life for the mission. And he goes one step further. He gets crucified and he says, I don't want to die the way, I'm not worthy to die the way Jesus died. Upside down. Unbelievable. So Peter, the little sand became the rock, became our leader. The weakest one of the link became the one to guide us. So we now have the ascension. Now, how many days between the ascension and Pentecost? 10, 40, 50, right? Penta, 55, 50. We got 40. So we've had the new creation and now we're waiting. Now there's 9 days of them waiting in the upper room, 9 days. Mary's there and the 11 apostles are there. Not the 12 yet, but the 11 are there.
Aren't the women also with the apostles there?
In that moment, other people may have been around, but at this time, yeah, they would have been around. But the focus now, we're focusing on these 11 and Mary, tongues of fire. 9 days happens. That's the first novena, by the way. So if you ever heard of it, the Tisawiya, the 9 days, the very first time happens is this one. And then, just a side note, the best, honestly, there's a website, praymorenovenas.com. It's the best title for a website because it does exactly what it says. I've now prayed more novenas because of that website than ever in my life because of praymorenovenas.com. Anyway, go to praymorenovenas.com. There's a novena for everything. Anyway, on the 50th day, tongues of fire come. Wind. Imagine the scene. What just happened? The Holy Spirit, the Comforter, the Advocate is now here. Fill them up. And what do you think happened? There was a transformation. You have to notice what's going on. They were in fear for 9 days, praying, quiet, alone, scared. Filled with the Holy Spirit, they had courage and they went out. And then what did they do? What did they do on Pentecost? They did preach. They did convert. Remember, they tried to help one of the first scenes was helping a crippled man. And then this guy said, money for the poor, right? And then Peter says, money I do not have, but the words of Jesus Christ. And in the name of Jesus Christ, be healed. And he gets up, walks, and he gives him something that money couldn't buy. 3,000 people came to Christ that day. One day. 11 people. 3,000. What can we do with 11 people? Now, they were so filled with the Holy Spirit, they lived everything. What did they do? They did what Jesus commanded them. Now, let's just remind ourselves what was the last command. Go teach, go to the end of the world, teach, baptize in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Make present before people's eyes the Trinity, what I've revealed to you, the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and go out there and do it, and do the same. Teach and baptize. Teach and baptize. And it all happens. And we now have, over time, 400 years it took, and I'll get to St. Paul in a minute, but 400 years until finally the Roman Empire turns. 400 years, just let that sink in. 4 centuries. If after the first century, after your 10 years, you don't give up, like you die and you think it's a hopeless cause. After your children die, it's a hopeless cause. The children's children die. You give up, right? No, they didn't give up. And the Roman Empire turned after the 4th century. It's phenomenal. When you look at this, it's the early church. Now, interesting, the scene of Saint Stephen. He is accused of being a follower of this Jesus, this Jew. And then what does Stephen do? He gives them a Bible study, what we just did the last 8 weeks. And they listen to him, listen to him, listen to him, to the point where he then makes a conclusion. The one we've been waiting for is this Jesus of Nazareth who died just recently and rose, and we are witnesses to this. What? They stoned him. And who commissioned it? Who oversaw it? It was this guy named Saul. Saul saw this. And then now Saul, interesting, he's a very learned man, academic. You would have read and spoke Greek, a Jew, a Roman citizen. I mean, this man had it all. And under his watch, Stephen was murdered, was martyred. Now, we celebrate that every year. Now, he goes off to Damascus, and he gets to Damascus. Now, on the way to Damascus, now, there's a big debate whether the horse or not. And he's thrown off the horse. It depends who you speak to. Depends who you speak to. Some people say yes, some people say no. Anyway, he sees, who are you, Lord? And Jesus says, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Lord? And he has this encounter now with Jesus. And he meets him and he is transformed now. He goes blind from the light. And then after a while, someone comes over. What's his name? Ananias. And he covers his eyes and takes the shackles off his eyes, or he opens his eyes, and you can see. Now, interesting, before Saul preaches the first word, how long does it take before he goes public? Yes, say it. 3 years. Did you notice that? Saul didn't just go, I'm converted, and went out and preached. He went deep into a long retreat. A little bit like what Jesus did for 40 days, a little bit like Moses did for 40 years, a little bit like others before him did. And it's a reminder to us, before you go out there and just think you can change the world, come back, you reassess yourself with God and get that right. Because if we're not right, if we're not ready, we're no good for anyone. We have to be ready. We have to be transformed here. We have to enter into that deep relationship with God. And once we're ready, it's showtime. But it's not our power, it's his power. And when we realize that, nothing will stop us. And we go out like St. Paul. And our St. Paul arguably became one of the greatest of the apostles, where he converted, oh my goodness.
Is it true he killed the most Christians?
St. Paul? St. Paul killed Christians? What do you mean?
St. Paul used to kill Christians before he converted.
Oh, before. Okay, yes, before the conversion. He would have killed a lot of Christians, absolutely. I don't know if it's the most, but I just don't know. It doesn't. But yeah, he killed a lot. Absolutely. As Saul, now he's Paul. Yes.
Isn't it Simon Peter didn't believe that he was going to become an apostle of Jesus Christ, and he didn't believe that he was a part of he was one of the apostles, and he just kept on denying it, saying.
Did Peter say Paul wasn't an apostle?
Yes.
Okay. No, well, they did have a few encounters, and when he realized that it's not with me, it's not against me, it's with me. So they did join forces. Did you want to add to it?
Yeah, I think it was to know that St. Paul himself commissioned the killing of St. Stephen. He didn't kill him.
Oversaw it.
Oversaw it.
Yeah.
But that's still bad.
Absolutely. Now, here's the point. He goes out, and how does he live his life now? You need to watch very closely when you read his life. Now, we're now in the book of Acts. And in the book of Acts, you read the early church. We've got the birth of the church. Pentecost is the birth of the church. And then we've got the going out. And here's what's going on. Peter evangelizes Rome. Okay. And now, interesting, Paul goes off. He he goes to Greece, he gets the Gentiles. And then there's a big debate about, hang on, when I baptized, I'm baptizing Gentiles who are not circumcised. Peter's baptizing Jews who are circumcised. Oh, that's easy, I just baptize you, as Jesus said. Paul does it. Now there's a dilemma. Do I circumcise them before baptizing them? Because should they become Jewish first and then Christian? And Paul argues no. The old law is finished. The new law begins. Baptism is the new circumcision. But there's a great debate, and guess what? We call it the First Council of Jerusalem. It's in the book of Acts. And the apostles all regather again at this Council of Jerusalem, and they discuss this. And although you might read closely that some apostles are standing up, Peter ultimately makes a decision. And then he says, yes, we can baptize and we don't need to be circumcised. There's a nice, beautiful tradition. It's around this scene when they all regather in Jerusalem that possibly the Assumption then happened. So the Assumption is beautiful, that it's almost like the apostles coming back, saying goodbye to Our Lady, and then Our Lady goes up, body and soul. Now, assumed into heaven, different to ascended into heaven. What's the difference? She's assumed into heaven by the power of God, not by our own power. Jesus is ascended, that's on his own power. Mary is taken up by God. Now, that might freak you out, and a lot of our Protestant friends get freaked out. Where'd you get that from? There's nothing radical about it. It's fitting that Mary assumed into heaven first, because all of us are destined to be in heaven with our body as well. It's in the creed. There's nothing radical here. We say, I believe in the resurrection of the body in the creed. Mary just got that early. Fair enough.
Why did Jesus wait so long? They say Mary stayed on earth for about 16 years after he...
I don't know the exact number, but yeah, enough time that all this stuff happened. So they're out there evangelizing Samaria and beyond, and Judea, Samaria and beyond, and then I don't know if it's 15. I mean, scholars are debating, but I think that's fitting. Why not? They should have been there for a few more years. That's all right. I don't see a problem there. Is it? Should she have died straight after?
I thought that Jesus might have taken it
earlier.
Like,
no, she was there at Pentecost, and then she would have been around.
She had to help Luke with his gospel.
She may have been. Yeah, this is beautiful traditions.
She had to help him with his gospel.
Yes.
Didn't Mary have the Holy Spirit and she was with Jesus, and Jesus in the room, the Holy Spirit was
impregnated. She became pregnant from the Holy Spirit, the spouse of the Holy Spirit. Yes, the Holy Spirit was the one to implant Jesus.
I think what he's saying is when she's full of grace, that she was present at Pentecost, she still received the Holy Spirit again.
Ah, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Pentecost.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
New mission.
That's a good one to meditate on. I don't know. That's beautiful. I don't know. She would have been filled with that's something to think about.
New mission. New mission.
She now queen of the world right now. She's queen of heaven, queen of the world. So what have I just done? I've journeyed through the rosary, the 20 mysteries. Every single day we have an opportunity to reflect on what I just did. Every day with Mary, and that's in the rosary. And you pray the rosary and you go over the life of Christ. That's basically the Bible on beats. It's the Bible, praying the Bible, meditating upon the Bible. It's all the Bible. So it's powerful. And we get to the end of the book of Acts. Now, St. Paul writes more books in the New Testament than anyone else. 27 books in the New Testament, most of them by St. Paul. He gets his head chopped off, right? He died, he's beheaded. And all the apostles get martyred, except St. John, I'm not sure.
one guy
But all of them get martyred. And there's a beautiful church in Rome, the Church of Lateran, the Lateran Church. You can see the statues of each apostle and the instrument that they died from. Some were skinned alive, speared, oh my goodness, beheaded, crucified. So you don't do that if what you believe in is false. You don't do that if what you believe in is a made-up story. You only do that. You only do that unless you're a mental case. You basically, what you're doing is going to your death for something you say you witness to. That's a big enough sign right there that, wow, these guys are authentic. These guys really mean it. And the witnesses to it converted and converted and converted. And here we are, 1 billion people later. You know, it's phenomenal. Yes.
You mentioned unless you're a mental case, that's not true. Mental cases also have a few of survival. So if anything,
Okay.
a mental case would actually more prefer to survive than a normal human being. So I just want to rule that out.
You know my point. My
Yeah.
point is people are saying you're either, like they wouldn't take you serious. They wouldn't take you serious. And this is it. They've died, they believed. Okay, now we're coming to the very end here. St. Peter's dead, St. Paul's dead, the book of Acts ends. That's it. It doesn't say they live happily ever after. It's weird. It just ends. What's going on? Why does the Bible just do that? You know why? Because it's actually not ended. Do you know the end of the book of the Bible is not the book of Revelation? Why do I say that? St. Pope Benedict said something about this.
The second coming, isn't it?
Yeah, we're waiting for that, but it's now before we even get there. What's going on?
Still pilgrim. That's the church.
We now are part of this scripture. You see? Watch closely. Jesus Christ fulfilled all the Old Testament prophecies perfectly. He didn't just tell us about them, he lived them. St. Peter followed Christ perfectly after he fell, came back, and then he followed the life of Christ. St. Paul followed the life of Peter. What's the pattern? We must follow the life of those before us. Who do we look up to since? There's a lot of examples. What do we call them? Saints. And the saints have lived lives of Christ. We honor them and adore them and look up to them and ask for them, their intercession, ask for their help, because they've gone before us. They've been there, done that, and they've made it. And we're asking for them to help us from heaven right now, to help get to where you are. We need to get there. Please help us. Intercede for us. You see, and we're actually called saints in the scriptures, but what we're talking about, saints are those in heaven, and we're trying to strive to be with them. And we have the church now in this state. Have you heard of this? 3. The church is not a building in Rome. The church is not St. Joseph's, Croydon, 7 Acton Street, Croydon. If someone wanted to assassinate the Pope and killed the Pope, is that the end of the Catholic Church? No. Because very quickly what will happen is they would vote in another old white man with a white hat, and then he becomes Pope. What about if you annihilated St. Peter's Basilica? Is that the end of the church? No. What about if we bombed all the churches? Is that the end of the church? No. What about if we bombed, like all the Catholics? Is that the end of the church? No,
it's not.
Because the church is what we call the mystical body of Christ. Christ is the head, and it's a living organism. Christ is in heaven now. And guess who's with him? The church triumphant, our saints. Guess who else who have died before us, who are not there yet, but about to get in there? The church suffering in purgatory. They're part of the church. And guess who else is waiting? It's all of us here, what we call the church militants, striving to get there. So who's not in the church? It's those in hell who have cut themselves off willfully. They chose it. Not God sent them there, they chose it. And so we have the church triumphant, church suffering, and the church militant. And all that is part of the body of Christ. This is our family. This is our community. This is our body. And so when we hear St. Paul, who gives examples of who are the feet, who are the hands, who is the head, when he talks about these, he's reminding us that we all have a role to play. And we're in this together. It's not a siloed individual church. It's not made up of individual siloed people. We're made collectively. And so we have to be in this together. So we pray in unity. We worship in unity. We unite with all those people who've gone before us. It's all one body. You see, go back to the beginning. God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit created out of nothing. So now he begets children. We are the children. So now what's the goal? We cut off and he's reunited himself back. And now we're one. And the goal is now this marriage in heaven. It's the wedding feast of the Lamb. Have you heard of that? And in Revelation talks about this, the new Jerusalem, the new heavens, the new earth. All we have to do, and I'll close on this and I'll open for questions. The wedding feast, there's an invitation given to every single one of us. Come to the wedding feast of the Lamb. Come to the wedding feast. Guess all we have to do? RSVP. RSVP. So you come. And we'll get there. But you've got to actually want to be there. God bless. That's 8 weeks of the Bible. So, any questions?
Now we pray for the hidden purgatory.
Yes.
Sorry, guys, just quickly before we go into questions and answers, I just want to pass around the collection plate for Shroud. He's taken out 9 weeks of his life. If you want to donate to him, then you can put it back into Perusia to keep spreading the word. You're happy to do that.
I'm happy to give it to Perusia. Yeah, thank you.
I'm just going to pass the plate around. We can ask it for your generosity. Be much appreciated.
God bless you. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so now when we pray for the hidden purgatory,
it all depends on where they're at. So basically, you know, people get caught up here. Purgatory is not a destination. Purgatory is basically a threshold of heaven. You're basically at the door, waiting to get in, and it's just like the purification. Purging. Purgatory is about purging. And you're in this temporary place, and it's not a location, it's basically, you're going to heaven. And you wipe your feet at the door. Don't come in dirty, you know, get rid of the dirt. So you're getting purged. Not necessarily, it depends. So if you die, you know, it's understood, if you die as a martyr, you know, a red blood martyr, you could go straight to heaven. You know, if you've done all your temple punishment on earth, you know, and you die in God's grace and sanctifying grace, you go to heaven. But ultimately, purgatory is not hell. It's not a second chance. It's you're saved. You just got to clean it. That's the end.
You know, like now we try to live such a life because we know this is the end goal of heaven.
Yes.
In the Old Testament, what did they view like the afterlife was? Because the gates of heaven weren't open. So
yes. Yeah, very good. Some did believe in an afterlife and some didn't. They thought when you die, that's it. They were the Sadducees. You see? Yeah. They didn't believe in the afterlife or the resurrection. But a lot did believe in the resurrection. Now, whether or not it was an instant thing or to come would have been different over the years. They did have something to look forward to, majority. But I don't know about the pagans. I don't know where they sit on this. I can't answer them. They're all different. Like
someone like Moses, what would have motivated him to do such good works?
Yeah, he would have had the desire to go to heaven. Yeah, absolutely. He would have thought of being there with God. He knew. No one reminded me about the love. I forgot to say that. Love. What is love? Now, can I just tell you very quickly, when Jesus says, and you know, follow the commandments. Remember that? Follow the commandments. Easy. Follow the commandments, not hard. But then he says, love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and then love your neighbor as yourself. The 2 greatest commandments. They don't replace the 10, they're added on, right? It's a value add here. But then those 2 things, very, very interesting. Love God. If you love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, what does that mean? God is everything, right? He's first in your life. He influences every decision. Whatever you do, it's out of love for him. Now here's the kicker. Here's the thing. To say I love God and not live it out, well, that's a lie. You're deceiving yourself. Now, to say that the old church had all these rules. Hey, guess what? Those rules are nothing. Because now in the new law, you know what love means? Do you know what love means? You see, following rules isn't the end game. It's a guide. It's actually God in his mercy giving us step-by-step instructions to at least do this. It's the actual minimum. This is where it gets scary. When I say I love God and I follow God with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength, here's what it means. First of all, we don't judge others. We're not looking left and right about how other people are living their lives. It's between us and God. And I know with my God-given conscience how much I can give of myself. You are the only judge to that. Father can't tell you. Your husband or wife can't tell you. Only you know how much you love. Now, here's the scary thing. This is very important. To be a follower of Christ, a disciple, you must love, agape love. Everything you do is got to be out of love, not out of tick in a box. The tick in the box idea is only the beginning. So I can go to church on Sunday, yep. Pray my rosary every day, yep. I give alms to the poor, yep. I've done this. How good am I? We've got to be careful not to creep into pride. It's love. So out of love for God, we do everything. And that will transform your intentions, your actions, your words, the way you manner, your patience, your peace, everything. Love means you do a little bit more, everything you can do. Now, if you say, all right, look back on your day. So tonight, go home, do a little examine, look back since the time you woke up. How did you live a Christian life today? How did you do it? And you think, I had opportunities where I should have led by example here. I should have helped this person there. I should have called that person. It was on my mind, but I didn't. I should have said my morning offering. I should have said my prayers. I had a chance to go to church, but I didn't. I could have done this. And you know, now it's not up to me to judge. It's not that if you do 3 rosaries and you go to mass, you're going to heaven, and then you do 2, so you're not as good as him. So it's not that at all. It's an individual thing here between us and God. And if you did 1 decade of the rosary, if that's what you can give, and God knows that's what you can do, God will receive that. But then the next day, if you know you can do more and you don't do more, this is where you have to assess yourself. And it's your own, it's not up to me to tell you, it's not up to Father to tell you, it's not up to anybody. It's our own personal journey. And guess what? Here's a little tip. If you know how much you can give, take 1 step in that direction. Don't sort of over-promise, under-deliver, if you know what I mean. Do what you know you can guarantee do, and then take a step, and every day look back and say, how can I be a little bit better, and just improve. God's asking you just to give your best, not anyone else's best. Don't look at others saying, oh man, I wish I was like them. I wish I was as holy as them. Look, we can be inspired, but we don't be judged on that. We're not comparing ourselves to each other. It's a waste of time. We compare ourselves with where God is calling us to be in our own positions. Now, it can be scary because you think I'm so far away, but that's okay. God will be there for you, and just call upon him and take it step by step, stage by stage. Trust me, that's what we have to do. Agape love. It's everything we can do, not everything someone else can do. It's not mum and dad's faith anymore. We don't go to church because mum and dad make me go. We don't go to church because the church forces us to go to church. We don't go to church to avoid hell. We go to church because we are in love with God, our Creator, so we can now be with him. We want to be there. We look forward. We get to go to church. We don't have to go to church. You get the difference? It's a different mentality. Wow, changes everything. So love at its core is, how am I going to be a sacrifice for others today, not for myself? How can I be better and better and better? And only God will see that. What's done in secret, God will judge. It's not done out of showing off. It's done between you and God.
Father Danny once said in the church in his homily, he said, I know you all love Jesus, but he said, are you in love with Jesus.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
a good
was the-
question. It's a very good
Yeah.
question.
And when he said that, it's true, like we all here, we all love Jesus, but how we can love Jesus. That's two completely different things, and that's what you're basically saying.
Yeah, that's what it is. And the more we love him, the more we want to know him. It's amazing.
I've got a quote based on everything you just said, the definition of love, and I thought I'd run away.
Yeah, please.
Let me know if it's okay. So it goes, because it starts off, because a lot of people mistake love as a feeling.
That's right. It's not a feeling.
Oh, I love Christ, never, to our materialistic world, we can't see Christ, so how can we feel like it's more of an action rather than a feeling. So it goes, love is not a feeling, but rather the act or the intention to act, only for the goodwill of others, often at one's own disadvantage.
It's beautiful.
Often at what? Sorry.
It's one's own.
Often at one's
Why?
own disadvantage.
Here's where it's pointed to. It's
The
not
word
pointed
often-
inward.
the word
It's
often-
outward.
Sorry.
It's pointed outward.
Yes, so
For
the
others.
word often is also, I think, deliberate because it demonstrates that sometimes you feel good about it, sometimes you don't. It's
a
a very,
byproduct.
the concept is the focus is like you said, and then you were saying all that, and I was just thinking it's quite because we're pretty much saying it in a different way. The focus is your whole purpose, your whole intention is for that person, and that person could be God, could be Christ, could be your fellow neighbor, could be everyone else. So that applies to everyone. When I said person, I don't reference
Yeah.
to
Yes.
the blind as well. So
Beautiful.
I thought that was
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it's definitely not a feeling. So you do stop loving on a day you feel sick? Yeah. Is it when you're tired? When you don't stop loving. We should be loving no matter what, and it hurts sometimes. It hurts a lot of the time.
Thomas Aquinas defines love as willing the good of the other as
Beautiful.
that's his
Wow.
definition.
It's beautiful. It's profound.
St. Paul said that the Corinthians, his definition of love.
Please open up. It talks about it a few ways. We say that weddings and stuff.
It says weddings all the time.
Patient, kind, it's all those things. Yeah. Love, you'll conquer everything. Every single saint had love. You are unbreakable if you have love, because you're emptying yourself. You see, you get out of the way. You're not. It's not about how you feel. It's not about what you want. Ultimately, it's about living God, being an image of God to others, to remind us where we're all going. We're all in this together, and it's loving others. The moment we stop that is the moment this whole culture will implode. The whole thing, it just becomes selfish, it becomes anarchy, it becomes crazy. We've got to be careful of that, and we just got to be that. And it doesn't. We've got to stop looking left and right and pointing to someone to do something. As we're doing all this, stop what? Me. What am I going to do? Be that change and lead that by example, and keep pushing. You're going to fall down. It's okay. Get back up. Say sorry. You're forgiven, and move on. And just keep going. And don't dwell on the past. Just keep going. Keep going. Eyes on the prize.
Eyes on the cross.
On the cross. Beautiful. Yes.
David, I said to myself, if I'm just gonna stare at the cross, just stare at our Lord. Every time I'm at mass, I'm always staring at the cross and just looking at him and just
Beautiful.
asking him to help me. And
You reminded me now, as you say that, St. John Vianney was in his church and he saw a man at the back of the church just sitting there all the time, all day, looking forward. And what's he doing? Anyway, he's there for a long time. And he's not talking. He doesn't look like he's praying. He's just sitting there looking. And St. John Vianney eventually asked him, "Are you okay? Is everything okay?" And the man who's looking at Tabernacle is saying, "I look at him. He looks at me back." The idea is he's in awe. He's in ecstasy. He's basically drawn to this loving relationship with God, the Creator, and nothing shakes that. And we get a taste of it when we fall in love with a human being, right? We fall in love with someone, and we know what happens inside, and we try to be the best we can for that person. And then, yeah, we have to keep that fire alive. But that is a little foretaste of the real love we're going to get. So God gives us these little clues throughout our life, and then you've got to just take those with them and amplify and put all that energy to ultimate eternal love. It transforms everything. So I'm very excited. This parish, what you're doing, each other, please pray for me, pray for Perusia, what we're doing. You are, I mean, there's so much we do. Again, if you want to, I don't even have papers, or if you want to go to our website, perusiamedia.com, you can put an email in and we can email you every week. But what we're doing is articles, podcasts. I am going to the Holy Land in September with Tim Staples and his brother who converted, Father Terry Staples, and we're going in September. So you're welcome. I've got brochures. If you want to live out the 5th gospel, this is the gospel in 3D. Come and join us, and we're going to do Bible studies right on the scenes of Magi standing on the mount, you know, of Calvary, or standing at the point where Jesus gave the Beatitudes. It's beautiful. September 3rd to 13th. So it's about 4 months. It's this year. There'll be another one next year. But this year, if anyone is in a position, come see me or grab a flyer. And yeah, it's going to be a life-changing experience. So yeah. So, yeah, we'll make this the last one, and then Victor will close. Oh, so hand up, JMJ, Jesus, Mary, Joseph. How do we do this? Do you have lessons on Revelations? Yes. It's actually right here. So if you want, go to the website, perusiamedia.com. We have the Revelation Bible study. I've got Acts, Matthew, I've got a bunch of them here, but yes, we do. How would you describe heaven? Oh man, I mean, it's just eternal bliss. Like just I don't even know how to describe. Think of all the best things in life, right? And it outdoes everything you can think of. Like it's beyond words. It's you and the beatific vision in awe, and you just, I don't know, you're lost forever just in God's vision. I don't know what to describe. It's too hard. It's too hard. They can't describe it. You're asking me something impossible. You didn't mention what the folded linen meant. It was the sign of Christ's passion. So that folded linen was evidence that Jesus not only died but resurrected, because the way that image was on there, it was a photo negative on a cloth, and that cloth is now 2,000 years old. We have it today. The Shroud of Turin. Check it out, Shroud of Turin. Just Google it. I mean, there's so many great discoveries. Father Robert Spitzer does great stuff on that. Magi Center. I did a few interviews with some people on it. It's mind blowing. Shroud of Turin.
That image that they got of Jesus from the shroud.
Yes.
They did the 3D image.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that is the image of God?
The Shroud. I'm definitely believing the Shroud. Yeah. If they try to do a 3D image, yeah, I mean, they can get as close as they can, but it's very hard to sort of get exact.
There was, you know, that Eucharist that turned into the body of Christ. Apparently, the type of blood is the same as the
Matches the Shroud of Turin.
Oh my goodness, yeah. If you want to go down there, that's yeah. Shroud of Turin, Eucharistic miracles, bleeding statues. I mean, they all tested the blood. They're all type A1 or A plus. Phenomenal. That's part of it, and there's a part 2. Yes, he talks about the blood type of Jesus. Yes, we should close. I'll let Victor close it. God bless you all, and I'll let Victor do his thing.
Just a quick word before we do close. As someone who has been able to go to the Holy Land and do the Stations of the Cross, it's actually what changed my life and brought me to Christ. If it is something you can do, I recommend it wholeheartedly. When I went there, I actually myself was not Catholic, and it converted me on the spot. I had a big story there, but that's for another day. If you ever do get the opportunity, it is something you have to do. And it's something even myself that I want to go back and experience again and again and again. Okay. If you do get an opportunity, please go with Shabba, with Tim Staples, probably 2 of the best men you can probably go to the Holy Land. And if you do want any other resources to learn, to keep learning about your faith and to keep learning in the proper theology of what the church has always taught, Perusian media is probably one of the best Catholic media sources you're ever going to get in Australia. So please, if we can all support them by going online, purchasing stuff so that you can also enrich your own lives, you would never regret it. I'll close with a prayer in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Thank you everyone for attending. We hope to see you next week. We've got a special guest speaker.